I've been a long-haul trucker for almost 20 years now. I've driven through snow, sandstorms, and places so remote that you'd swear no one's lived there in 100 years. Most of the time, the job is simple: pick up the load, deliver it, and move on to the next. But once in a while, something happens that stays with you. Something that chills you deep, something you can't explain. That's what happened to me one night while driving through Nevada. I still get goosebumps when I think about it. They call it Mile 209. I had never heard of it before, and if I had, maybe I wouldn't have gone down that stretch of road. But now I know, now I believe. It started like any other run. I was moving a shipment of electronics from Denver to Sacramento. The weather had been clear, the truck was running smooth, and I had a full tank of diesel. I left around noon and planned to drive most of the night. I like nighttime driving. Fewer people around, and you can just put your music on. Hum of the engine. Somewhere around 10 p.m. I crossed into Nevada and got on US Route 50. They call it the loneliest road in America, and that ain't a lie. It's just desert, black sky, and the occasional jackrabbit darting across the road. Not a house in sight for miles and miles. I remember passing a small sign that said Mile 209, but I didn't think anything of it at the time. Just another marker. I checked the clock. It was 10:41 p.m. I still had at least 4 hours to go before I planned to stop for the night at a small truck stop just outside Fallon. I turned the music down low, lit a cigarette, and kept my eyes on the road. But something felt strange. The temperature dropped quickly. I checked the dashboard, 54 degrees, then 48, then 41 in just a few minutes. That's not normal for this area, especially in early fall. I turned off the AC, still freezing. I could see my breath in the cab, even though all the windows were closed tight. A woman standing on the side of the road, dressed in a white gown, barefoot. Her long black hair covered her face. I thought maybe she was in trouble, maybe her car had broken down. I slowed down and pulled the truck to the shoulder. My headlights lit her up, but she didn't move. Just stood there, arms hanging by her sides, like she was waiting for something. I opened my window and leaned out. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I asked. No answer. Not even a twitch. I felt a chill crawl up my spine, and it wasn't just the cold. Something about her didn't feel right. It was like she wasn't really there. I decided not to get out of the truck. Something in my gut told me to drive. Just drive. I hit the gas and pulled back onto the road. My headlights cut through the darkness, and in the rearview mirror I could still see her standing there, getting smaller and smaller. But just as I was about to lose sight of her, she suddenly turned and looked up at me. I saw her face. It was pale, sunken. Her eyes were just black. No whites, no pupils. Just two black holes staring into me. My hands gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I kept driving. I turned the radio off, lit another cigarette, and tried to shake the image out of my head. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I imagined it. But then the lights on the dashboard flickered, just for a second. The engine made a strange choking sound. The whole truck shook like I'd driven over something big. I hit the brakes and looked behind me in the side mirrors. Nothing there, just empty road. I looked ahead again and slammed the brakes. The woman was standing right in front of me. I should have hit her. I should have plowed right through her. But there was no sound, no impact. She just vanished as the headlights hit her, like smoke in the wind. My heart was racing. I checked the time again. 11:17 p.m. Something was wrong with this stretch of road. Single car in almost an hour. No lights, no signs of life. Just blackness. Slower now. Every little bump or sound made me flinch. I turned the interior lights on. I wanted to see everything, make sure I wasn't going crazy. But it didn't help. That cold feeling was still there, like the air was full of ice. Then I started hearing the whispers. At first it was so faint I thought it was the wind, just a soft rustling sound, but then it got louder. Still quiet, but clear. A voice, no, several voices, all whispering at once. I couldn't make out what they were saying, just words layered over each other coming from behind me. I looked in the rearview mirror. The back of the cab was empty. Still the whispers continued, filling the space behind my ears, making my skin crawl. I slammed the steering wheel and shouted, "Shut up!" And the voices stopped instantly. Dead silence. For a moment I thought maybe I had scared whatever it was away. But then, a new sound. Breathing. Deep, slow breathing, right behind my seat. I want to look. But I had to. I slowly turned my head just enough to peek over my shoulder. And I saw a face. Right there, inches from mine. Pale, hollow eyes, black veins running across the cheeks. A mouth that stretched too wide, like it was smiling at me. I screamed and slammed my foot on the gas. The truck roared forward, and the face vanished. I drove like a madman. Speed limit be damned. I just wanted to get out of there. But no matter how far I went, the odometer barely moved. I passed a sign that said mile 209 again. I was confused. Hadn't I already passed it? Then another sign. Mile 209. Over and over. Again and again. I was stuck in some kind of loop, like the road was folding in on itself. I looked at the clock, 12:08 a.m. I had been on the same stretch of road for over an hour. Warning, just silence. The engine stopped. The lights went out. Everything inside went dark and the truck rolled to a slow stop on its own. I tried the key, nothing, just dead. I grabbed my flashlight and reached for the door handle. As soon as I touched it, the whispers came back, louder now, angry. The flashlight flickered in my hand. I shined it around the cab, no one there. Then I heard tapping, from the passenger side window. Tap, tap, tap. I turned the flashlight toward the sound, and there she was again, the woman. Her hand was pressed against the glass. Her mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear her. Then the door handle started to move. Slowly, like she was trying to get in. I locked the doors and shouted, "Leave me alone!" And just like before, she vanished. Truck floors, shaking, watching the road. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. At some point the engine roared back to life on its own. The dashboard lights blinked back on. The temperature went back to normal. It was like nothing had happened. I checked the time. 3:33 a.m. I shifted into gear and took off. This time, when I passed the next mile marker, it said, mile 210. I almost cried. I didn't stop until I reached the truck stop in Fallon. I ran inside, pale, sweaty, and shaking. The woman at the counter looked at me like I was a ghost. I told her everything. She didn't laugh. She just nodded slowly and said, "You went through mile 209, didn't you?" I asked how she knew. She said I wasn't the first trucker to show up like this. Same story, same woman, same cold. Stop until the sun came up. I called my dispatcher and made up an excuse. I couldn't go back on that road, not ever. I still drive, but I avoid that route completely. I've got a different map now, one with a big red 10 over mile 209. I tell every trucker I meet about it. Some listen, some laugh. But I don't care. I know what I saw, what I felt. That road is cursed. And if you ever find yourself out on US 50 at night, look out for the sign. If it says mile 209, turn around, don't stop, don't speak. And whatever you do, don't let her in. On mile 209, I didn't feel like myself anymore. Even though my truck ran fine after the breakdown, something inside me had changed. I couldn't explain it, not even to myself. Every time I looked in the mirrors, I expected to see that woman's face staring back. I'd wake up in my sleeper with cold sweat running down my back, heart pounding like a drum, ears straining to hear whispers that weren't there. Or maybe they were. I couldn't tell anymore. Something followed me off that road, I know it. Something came with me. The truck stop in Fallon became my safe place for a while. I stayed parked there for 2 full days, living on black coffee and cheap microwaved meals. Every time another trucker came through the doors, I watched their eyes. I wanted to ask them, "Have you seen her? Did you drive past mile 209? But I couldn't say it out loud. I sounded like a madman just thinking about it. Ghost story from a tired old driver with shaky hands and bloodshot eyes. Myself back on the road. I couldn't sit still anymore. The company had already reassigned the electronics load I abandoned after that night, but they gave me a new one, a flatbed trailer full of steel beams headed to Portland. The route was simple, and more importantly, nowhere near Nevada. I told myself it was over. The woman, the whispers, the loop, all of it, just a freak experience I'd never have to relive. But I was wrong. I was somewhere in Northern California, not far from the Oregon border, when things got strange again. It was late at night, maybe 2 a.m., and I had just pulled into a rest area off I-5. There were a couple of other trucks parked already, their cabins dark. I killed my engine and climbed into the sleeper cab, hoping for a few hours of rest. I remember staring at the ceiling for a while, feeling uneasy for no reason. I pulled the curtain shut between the driver's seat and the sleeper and closed my eyes. At some point, but I didn't feel rested. I woke up suddenly, heart racing, and I couldn't breathe. The air inside the sleeper was ice cold, again. My breath fogged up in front of me, just like it had on mile 209. I sat up fast, rubbing my arms. The little curtain was still closed, but something was wrong. The whole truck felt heavy. Like the air was thick. I leaned forward, trying to peek past the curtain, when I heard a soft creaking sound, like leather being pressed under weight. Someone, or something, was sitting in the driver's seat. I froze. I didn't move a muscle. My ears picked up the slow sound of breathing again. Deep, hollow, and close. I stared at the curtain, terrified it might move. I told myself I was dreaming. I was still in bed. It wasn't real. But then the curtain did move, just slightly, like fingers gently brushing it from the other side. I opened my mouth to call out, but no words came out. I was paralyzed by fear. Rick. My name. It knew my name. Lunged forward, ripping open the curtain with both hands. But the seat was empty. There was no one there. The cab was silent, still cold as death, but empty. I turned on every light in the truck. I checked under the seats, behind the driver's chair, even opened the door and stepped out into the night. Nothing. The other trucks in the lot were still parked, still quiet. No one else had moved. I must have looked like a lunatic, standing in the gravel in my bare feet, shaking like a leaf. I didn't sleep again that night. I hit the road again, eager to get to Portland and unload the steel. I drove hard all day, trying to forget what happened in the sleeper. But part of me already knew I wasn't done with mile 209. And mile 209 wasn't done with me. A few days later, I delivered the cargo and checked into a motel to rest. No truck, no cab, just a soft bed and 4 walls. I thought maybe the nightmare was finally over. That night, I was sitting on the bed, watching TV with the lights off, when the screen suddenly went black. Not just the TV, the whole room. The power died in an instant. The clock radio beside the bed blinked out. I groaned and stood up, thinking maybe I had tripped a breaker. But then I heard it again, whispers, coming from inside the room. And she was there, standing at the far end of the room, by the bathroom door. The same woman, white gown, long black hair covering her face. She hadn't aged a day, or maybe she was never alive to begin with. I backed away, stumbling over the edge of the bed, and fell to the floor. She took a step forward. The floorboards creaked beneath her bare feet. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I reached for the lamp. Nothing. The switch clicked, but no light came. Darkness held me like a fist. She whispered again, only this time it wasn't just my name. It was something else. Something I didn't understand. Words from another language, or maybe just nonsense, but I felt the meaning deep in my bones. It was a warning, or a curse. Then she vanished. Just like that. Gone. A second later, the TV buzzed back to life. The lights flickered and held steady. I was alone again. I left the motel at sunrise, drove until my eyes burned. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to move. I thought maybe I could outrun her. But the truth is, she's inside now. Not in my truck, not in my mirrors. In me, in my mind. I see her in reflections that shouldn't be there. I hear her in songs on the radio, buried under the music. Her voice is with me always. I started calling other truckers, guys I trust, old friends, asked them if they ever drove past mile 209. Some said no, some said yes, but they got through without a problem. Only a few of them hesitated. One guy, Earl, a vet driver from Texas, went quiet when I mentioned it. Then he said, "That place? You seen her too?" That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. Not completely. Once, years ago. Same description, same gown, same dead eyes. She showed up in his sleeper just like she did in mine. But he didn't stick around. He quit driving after that. Sold his rig and started working a warehouse job. Said the road was cursed and some folks just attract the wrong kind of attention. I asked him what he thought she was. He didn't answer for a long time, then he whispered, "Not a ghost, Ghosts don't follow you. I didn't understand what he meant then, but I do now, because she's not haunting a road anymore. She's haunting me, and I don't think she's going away. I changed routes. I slept in daylight. I left the engine running while I napped, hoping the hum would keep her away. But nothing worked. She was still there, always. In mirrors, in shadows, in reflections where nothing should be. I'd catch her in the chrome of my side view, standing just beyond the frame. I'd see her in the puddle by the gas pump at night. One time I even saw her on the back of my eyelids while blinking, just standing there, waiting. No matter where I went, I felt her. She wasn't bound to mile 209 anymore. She was bound to me. So damn tired. My mind felt like it was starting to come apart. I couldn't eat. I barely slept. When I did close my eyes, I'd wake up to her voice whispering my name, her face inches from mine, hovering above my bunk. I started talking to her in my head, asking what she wanted, why me. But she never answered. Not with words, just with silence and presence. Thick, heavy presence that pressed on my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. Then something happened that broke me. I was parked outside a diner near the Idaho border, just trying to eat a burger and keep my hands from shaking. I looked out the window and saw my truck across the parking lot. There was someone in the driver's seat. At first I thought maybe a thief had broken in, so I jumped up and ran outside. But as I got closer, I saw her again. Through the windshield. She was sitting in my seat like she owned it, like she belonged there. Not much, just a little. But when she did, I heard it. A voice, not hers, coming from the radio even though the truck was off. It said, "Come back," just that, over and over again. "Come back, come back, come back." And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. I had to go back to mile 209. I didn't. But something inside me said I had no choice. If I didn't face it, I'd go mad. I'd lose myself completely. She'd never stop until I returned to where it all started. Maybe she needed something from me. Maybe she wanted to drag me into whatever world she came from. Or maybe she wanted peace. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't call Earl. Didn't speak to a soul. I just rerouted my next haul to pass through Nevada. The company didn't question it. The cargo was non-urgent supplies for a hardware chain, tools and fasteners, nothing special. I told myself it was just another delivery, just another road, but it wasn't. As I approached US Route 50 again, I felt that cold air return. My fingers went numb on the wheel, my breath started to fog, even though it was over 60 degrees outside. My radio began to flicker, channels jumping on their own. I passed a road sign, mile 200. I knew it was close. It looked the same as it did that night. Flat, empty, dead, no lights, no other cars, just silence. I slowed to a crawl, watching each mile marker like a countdown. 204, 205, 206. My heart was thudding in my ears. 207, 208, and then, mile 209. I stopped the truck, right there, in the middle of the highway, with no one around for miles. I killed the engine and stepped out. The sky above me was full of stars, but they felt cold and distant, like they were watching. I walked to the front of the truck, staring into the desert, waiting. And she came, bare feet crunching the gravel, white gown flowing like smoke. She didn't rush, she didn't float. She walked, slow and steady, until she was standing 10 feet from me. Her hair still covered her face. Her hands hung loosely at her sides. She didn't speak, but I felt her words pressing into my head like a drill. "You came back." I didn't answer. I just nodded. She lifted her hand and pointed behind me, toward the truck. I turned slowly and looked. And for a moment I saw something else entirely. The truck was gone. I was standing on dirt. In front of me was an old carriage, a wooden one, broken, burned on one side. A horse lay dead in the dust, its ribs poking through skin, and beside the wreck, a body. A woman in a white gown, her face smashed, her leg twisted the wrong way. And in the distance, torches, men shouting, angry, violent voices. I blinked, and the vision vanished. The truck was there again, the road, the sky. But I understood now. Ghost. She was a memory. A soul caught in a loop of death, betrayal, maybe revenge. Maybe her last ride ended here, on mile 209. And now anyone who passed through too slowly, anyone who stopped, became part of her endless broken story. "I see you," I whispered. She tilted her head, just slightly, her fingers twitched. "I know what happened," I said. "You died here." The wind picked up, not harsh, soft like a sigh, and for the first time, she moved closer, just a step. Her face came into view as the hair parted slightly, and I saw pain, not anger, not evil, just endless sorrow. Her mouth opened as if to speak. But then, headlights. The woman turned her head and stared into the beams. The vehicle never slowed. It passed right through her, right through me. I didn't even feel it. When I turned around, she was gone. I stood there in the middle of the highway for a long time. The silence returned. The cold air faded. My breath no longer fogged. The truck behind me looked warm again, alive. Key. It started right away. I drove. I passed mile 210 within 5 minutes. No loops, no ghosts, just road. That was 6 months ago. I haven't seen her since. If I gave her peace. Other times I wonder if she just found another road, another mile, another unlucky driver to trap. But I'm free, for now. And every night I'm out on the highway, I still glance at the signs, just to be sure. Because if I ever see mile 209 again, I won't stop. Not for anything. Not even her. Since mile 209, and I thought I was done with the strange. My days felt normal again. I was running routes through the Midwest, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, long flat roads that seemed safe enough. I slept better. The woman hadn't appeared since that night in the desert. Her whispers were gone. The shadows stayed quiet. Life behind the wheel felt almost peaceful, but peace doesn't last in this job. Not for people like me. It started with a load out of St. Louis, a last-minute run. The dispatcher said it was urgent medical cargo, oxygen tanks and hospital supplies, headed to a long-term care facility near Cheyenne, Wyoming. Strange, though, the delivery wasn't listed to a known company. Just a name, Glencroft Lodge. Never heard of it. I asked if it was a hospital, a hospice, a clinic. Dispatcher didn't know. The client paid cash. High priority. No stops, they said. No reroutes. Just follow the GPS we give you. Just warning. I picked up the trailer at an old warehouse just outside the city. Place looked abandoned. Windows boarded up, no lights. But sure enough, 2 men were waiting by the dock. Didn't say much. Didn't show ID. Just loaded the trailer and gave me a GPS unit. Not the one built into the truck. A separate little box, older model. Said it had the only approved route to Glencroft. I asked what I was delivering exactly. One of them just looked at me and said, "They're waiting, don't be late." Then he shut the trailer doors. I should have walked away, but I didn't. I took I-70 west toward Kansas City, then north through Nebraska. But somewhere past Lincoln, the GPS took me off the main highway, onto smaller roads. 2 lanes, no shoulder, no lights, just dark farmland stretching in every direction. I checked the satellite map on my phone. No such place as Glencroft Lodge. Not in Wyoming. Not anywhere. Still, I kept driving. I don't know why. Something about the road made me feel like I couldn't stop. Around 2 a.m., fog rolled in. Thick stuff. So dense I had to slow to 30 just to see the lines on the road. The GPS kept chirping, in 1 mile, turn left. Then in 800 feet, turn left. I followed it into a gravel path I hadn't noticed before. There were no signs. No mailbox. Just trees on both sides, tall and silent, forming a tunnel. And there it was. A massive, crumbling stone building in the middle of nowhere. Looked like a mental hospital from the 1930s. Rusted bars on the windows. Ivy crawling up the sides. The parking lot was cracked and filled with weeds. But the front doors were open. Lights glowed from inside. Not electric light, lanterns. Actual flames flickering in the windows. I parked the rig, stepped out. The air smelled old, like mildew and dust, but beneath that something else, something foul, like rot. I walked up to the front, expecting someone to greet me. No one came, so I went inside. My skin went cold. The air inside wasn't just cold, it was dead. No movement, no sound, just the creak of old wood under my boots. The hallway stretched far into darkness, doors lined both sides. I could hear something, barely, a soft tapping, like fingernails on glass. Then a voice. "Deliveries go to the basement." It came from behind me. I turned. Nobody there, but a door near the reception desk had opened slightly. A sign above it read, "Stairs." I should have left. I should have turned, walked out, and driven until the sun came up. But I didn't. The basement was colder than the rest of the building, and darker. I used the flashlight on my phone to guide me. The walls were lined with doors, metal doors, locked. Some had small windows, smeared with dust. I peeked into one, and jumped back. There was someone inside. An old man sitting in a chair, eyes wide open, staring at the wall. I thought maybe he was dead, until he blinked. Slowly, like someone waking from a deep sleep. Behind me, another voice whispered, "You're late." I spun around. Still no one there. But the trailer doors, back outside, they swung open on their own. Inside. Boxes at first. Then, one of them tipped over. A body rolled out. Not a body bag, not a dummy. A person. Wearing hospital scrubs, eyes closed, mouth open. Skin pale as wax, but they weren't dead. Their chest was rising, breathing, slow, barely. Opened. Another body. And another. They had delivered people. Still alive. I staggered back, my throat closed up, my heart beat so loud I thought it would burst. I didn't understand. Who were they? Why were they in my trailer? Why didn't I hear them moving? Then the doors at the end of the hall opened, and they came in. The staff looked like old nurses, orderlies, pale faces, hollow eyes, some missing teeth. They didn't speak, they didn't blink. They began lifting the bodies one by one and dragging them into the rooms, slamming the doors shut behind them. I tried to leave, but the stairwell was gone, just a wall, like it had never existed. The lights flickered, then failed. Total darkness. Before I blacked out was a voice from behind one of the doors. A whisper, soft but clear. "Don't come back." I don't remember getting back to the truck. One moment I was in that black basement, listening to the doors slam shut. The next thing I knew, I was behind the wheel, parked along a dusty highway, miles from anywhere. The GPS was gone. My trailer was empty. The time on the dashboard read 4:12 a.m. I blinked at the road ahead, my hands still gripping the wheel. My shirt was soaked in sweat. My boots were covered in dry mud and something else, dark stains I didn't want to look at too closely. I sat there for what felt like hours, trying to remember. When I finally checked my logbook, it said I had delivered my load, signed, sealed, like it was any other job. The system even marked it as on time. But I hadn't signed anything, no one had. My mind raced. Were those people even alive? Was I helping traffic human cargo, or was it something worse, souls being delivered to a place they could never leave? I should have quit right then. Sold the truck, burned the papers, moved off-grid, but something kept me on the road. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the feeling that I was already too deep, that my soul, like those people in the trailer, had already been delivered, just not to a place with a name yet. Kept to myself. Short hauls, no night drives, no more strange routes. I threw the company GPS in a ditch and used only paper maps. I started carrying salt in the glove box and a rosary on the dash, even though I hadn't been to church in 30 years. Earl called me once, asked how I was doing. I told him I was fine. I lied. He told me something that still haunts me. "You ever notice how no one talks about the weird runs, Rick? But we all have one." He said it like a confession, like a warning. I was almost ready to believe it was over when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. No name, just a voice. "Rick Jensen? Yes? We need someone who's been to Glencroft before." I threw the phone out the window. That night I stayed at a rest stop in northern Utah. I parked far away from the building, under a busted street lamp. I kept the engine running. The heater was on, but around 2 a.m. the cold came back. The kind of cold that doesn't care about heaters or jackets. The kind that sinks into your skin. Then I heard it again, the knocking. From inside the trailer, I grabbed my flashlight and jumped out, heart hammering in my chest. Walked around to the back. In silence. I opened the trailer. It was empty. But on the floor was something new, something that hadn't been there before. A manifest sheet, old paper, yellowed. Smelled like mold. Tons of them. Beside each one was a status, delivered. In transit. returned. But the last one at the very bottom chilled my blood. Rick Jensen. Status. Processing. I dropped the paper like it burned my hands, slammed the doors and jumped back in the cab. I peeled out of that rest stop without checking my mirrors, tires screeching, trailer bouncing behind me. Processing? What did that mean? Was I next? Had I already been claimed? I kept driving. Didn't matter where, just movement. As long as I stayed in motion, I felt like I still had control. But strange things kept happening. Road signs would change. Exit numbers made no sense. Once I passed the same gas station 3 times on a straight road. And then I saw her again. Not the woman from mile 209. Someone new. Younger. A girl, maybe 16. She stood on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, wearing a hospital gown, her arms covered in bruises and tape. I drove right past her. But she was at the next mile marker too. And the next. Always standing, always watching. No expression. Just eyes full of something I couldn't name. Anger, fear, maybe both. When I finally pulled over, she was gone. But in the moment, her name, written on the inside of my windshield, in the frost. Jessica Vale, returned. Returned? Returned from Glencroft? Or to it? I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I called the dispatch office, asked who had assigned me that load. The woman on the phone said something that still makes my skin crawl. What load? The Glencroft delivery, I said. The hospital run. From St. Louis? And she said, "Sir, we have no record of that shipment, and we don't have a client by that name." I hung up without saying goodbye. That night I had a dream, or maybe it was a memory. I was standing in the basement of Glencroft again, but this time the doors were open. Every room was filled with people, lying in beds, sitting in chairs, eyes blank. They weren't being treated, they weren't being helped. They were stored, like items, like freight. And at the end of the hall there was a desk. A woman in a nurse's uniform sat there, writing names in a book. When I approached, she looked up and smiled. Her eyes were black as oil. "You'll be staying soon." I woke up gasping for air. The manifest was sitting on the passenger seat. I hadn't touched it, but one name had been crossed out, and mine had moved up the list. Now I was next. That night, every time I closed my eyes I saw the basement, the rooms, the faces, the ledger on the desk, my name always climbing closer to the top. I started driving with no destination, just moving, state to state, gas station to rest stop. I avoided cities, avoided major roads. I didn't want to risk another call, another assignment. The manifest never left my cab. I'd tried throwing it away, twice, but both times it was back in the seat by morning, like it belonged there, like it owned me. My reflection changed. Sometimes, while shaving or glancing into a window, I'd see myself blink out of sync, or smile when I wasn't smiling. Once in a truck stop bathroom, I watched my reflection tilt its head, while I stood perfectly still. I staggered out of there, heart pounding, too afraid to go back in. I didn't feel like myself anymore. I felt like a passenger in my own body, barely hanging on while something else slowly took the wheel. I realized that I couldn't outrun this. I had to go back. Not because I wanted to, not because I thought I'd win, but because Glencroft had made me part of its system, part of its machine, and if I didn't face it, if I didn't fight, it would just keep going, taking more people, filling more rooms. I headed toward Wyoming. I didn't use GPS. I remembered the route. It was burned into my memory. The cracked highway, the silent trees, the gravel path with no sign. Every turn felt like stepping deeper into my own grave. But I didn't stop. Not this time. I didn't slow down until I saw it. Glencroft Lodge, just like before. The windows were broken now. The stone walls crumbling. The front doors gone. The parking lot was flooded with standing water and rusted wheelchairs. Vultures circled the roof. A sign lay face down in the dirt, half buried. And yet, the lights were still on inside. Lanterns, burning, waiting. I stepped out. This time, I brought something with me, a crowbar from under my seat, and a small bottle of diesel fuel. I didn't know what I was doing, not exactly, just that I was tired of being a piece of cargo, tired of being watched, tracked, processed. The moment I crossed the threshold, I felt it. The air got thick. The floor groaned. The building breathed. I walked through the hall, crowbar in one hand, flashlight in the other. The stairs to the basement waited for me, just like before. But now the doors were wide open, like it wanted me back, like it was welcoming me home. Dark. The rooms were still full. The people inside hadn't aged, hadn't moved. Their eyes followed me, slow and empty. Whispers followed me too, faint voices calling names I didn't know, and some that I did: Jessica Vale, Henry Black, Rick Jensen. At the far end of the basement, the nurse was waiting. Same black eyes, same ledger. "You've returned," she said, writing with her pen. "You understand now," I said. "You'll stay." "No," I said, and raised the crowbar. She stood. Her smile didn't fade. She didn't even move when I swung it through her face, because it passed right through her. Like smoke, like a dream. But the ledger fell. I grabbed it, and I ran. I kicked open doors, shouted at the bodies. "Wake up! Wake the hell up!" Blink. One, a man in his 30s, gripped the edge of his bed and whispered, "Is it over?" "Not yet," I said. I soaked the floor with diesel. I lit a match. The fire caught fast, too fast. The old wood and dust flared up in seconds. Smoke filled the hallway. The nurse shrieked, not with fear, but rage. The other staff began to appear, orderlies, doctors, things wearing flesh like masks. They lunged at me, arms reaching through the flames. But I kept moving. I got the man on his feet, then a woman, then two more. Together we ran for the stairs. We burst into the hallway as the fire roared behind us. The roof cracked. Ash fell like snow, and Glencroft began to scream. Not the building, not the staff, the place itself. Thing, like something that had fed for too long and now felt the hunger end. I ran with the survivors, out into the cold night, into the weeds and gravel and silence, and then it was over. The fire burned until sunrise. The building collapsed in on itself, stone walls crumbling, smoke curling into the dawn. I watched from the road, the ledger still in my hands. Every name in it was burning now, every name but mine. Mine had vanished. It was gone. Deleted. Erased. I survive. Still run hauls from coast to coast. But no more midnight deliveries. No more strange assignments. If the pickup spot looks wrong, I don't stop. If the paper smells old or the client won't show their face, I drive on. Sometimes, late at night, I see people walking by the road. People in gowns. People with blank eyes. But they don't come close, they just watch, and I keep driving. I carry the crowbar in the sleeper now. Box. The last thing I found in that ledger before I burned it, a blank form. No name, no location. Just a title across the top, manifest next cycle, but I'm not filling it out. Not ever.